welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
So welcome to this episode of Turn the Page podcast, Syosset Library's podcast. I am one of your librarian hosts, Stacey, Reader Services Librarian, and I am so pleased to interview our guest today. I was like, drum roll. And our guest is?
Hi, I'm Sarah Smith. I'm the author of the newly released On Location.
So I'm very excited. So we got asked if we wanted to interview, and we got like the blurb, and I was like, oh, this sounds fun. And a coworker was like, this sounds like a book right up your alley, because I like romances. So I was like, oh, okay. And I'll read a variety for work. But I think like my top two genres are like thrillers and then just romance. And I was like, oh, this sounds really fun. Oh, contemporary, because I went on a bit of like a historical romance kick. Thank you, Bridgertons. But yeah, I got into this, and I have to say, your writing, I feel like I'm there with them. I feel like they're my friends. Like they're real people to me now, Sarah. Just so you know. Like, I'm ready to be like, oh my God, like that happened, like reading it. And it's funny because I looked at reviews when prepping for this interview. And some of the reviews were like, oh yeah, like, you know, the miscommunication trope. And I was like, hey, that's extremely real. This is like my relationship with my husband. Shut up. Because like I'm reading between the two of them is her name Aaliyah or Alia? Am I pronouncing it right?
So in my head I say Alia, but
okay.
Yeah, however you want to, you know, whatever makes it more special to you, however you want. Yeah.
Between Alia and Drew, I'm just like, yep, I could see that 100% happening. 100%. Yep. Nope. I do that to my husband. This is like, I was very entertained by it. So I was like, I like it when it's realistic. Like I'm okay with, you know, suspending belief for books, but I was just like, oh my God, I love when it's something I could jump into and be like, I'm living it too. And now because of you, I need to go to Utah. Never been.
I'm honestly so happy to hear you say that. And I get it, like, you know, no book is everyone's cup of tea. There are some tropes that like get on people's nerves, and I totally get it. But yeah, like miscommunication, I mean, who hasn't, you know what I mean? In a relationship or any kind of relationship, like you've miscommunicated and misunderstood. So I feel like I just have to like spotlight that in my book sometimes, because I just feel like it's a relatable thing, no matter if it drives you crazy.
It happens and it's cool, but I know I like that. And then I had to post some of the reviews on Goodreads, because they bring me such joy. And like I said, listeners, if you want like a fun read, I recommend it. It's cute, it's charming, it's sassy. Look, it's steamy, which I'll get to that in one of the reviews, because it entertained me so much. So some of the reviews for the book, these are from like people on Goodreads.
Okay.
So someone once, I didn't write who said what because I forgot to get their name, whether it's my real name or their username, whatever. So powerful feminism, women empowerment vibes with #MeToo movement, mansplaining and inequality at the workplace perfectly combined with sexy hot chemistry of two coworkers! ! And then I love this one too. So woo-wee! Can she write delicious romance? One of my favorite contemporary rom-com authors, offering witty banter and honest dialogue, along with themes of cultural identity, equality, and thriving through connection and moving beyond emotional turmoil. And of course, spicy imagery, which she continues to elevate with original premises and honed talent. This is another one which was good. This I pulled from in the middle of someone's like really long, very lovely review. The romance is between a female superior and male subordinate without any kind of explaining or posturing being necessary, which I will jump back to that because I'm excited about that too. And then this is my favorite of all the ones that I pulled for this. The plot was the main focus of the book, which this person loves in a romance, but that didn't make the romance scenes any less steamy, capital steaming, like turn on the ceiling fan in my bedroom level of hot.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
So I don't know if you read your own reviews or not, but I had to be like, I need to tell her this because I agree with all of them.
Oh my God. Yeah. Normally, I mean, when somebody, like tags me in a good review, I'll read that and that's awesome. But I don't normally like go and see like, oh, let's go look at Goodreads today. Cause that like, I'm just so scared I'm going to like accidentally see a horrible one. But no, I love that you did that. Thank you. That totally made my day. That's so wonderful.
I love it because I really enjoyed. So the story takes place, it's contemporary, modern, and it's about a woman who's trying to do a documentary travel series and about it was almost, I wanted to say, made me think of like the missed opportunities on Craigslist that like sometimes I read when I'm bored, fully admit to that, guilty pleasure. But so Leah meets Drew on the subway, they hit it off, they connect, they have a great night, and then he ghosts her. But then you find out he's working for her on this new series she's working on. And that's like the basic gist of the story, no spoilers. But I really enjoyed that it was with a female superior, male subordinate, because most of the time it's usually the reverse in a lot of romance, because that's a classic trope. Mm-hmm. But you didn't have to be like, oh, well, this like have to fully explain it and go into a whole like spiel about why, which I feel some authors feel the need to do, which maybe in their story they do. But I was just like, why do we need to have like an explanation? Like it happens, it's realistic. Okay, let's move on. Cool, she's his boss. That's okay.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think for me, like that, and not to hate on anyone else's what they like to read or what they like to write, but like I just am tired of like the power dynamic of like the guy is always the one who's like, in the power position, and then she's just kind of like navigating it. And I hate that so much because I just don't think that that's like, there's just something about that like just rubs me the wrong way. But I can totally understand why that would be fun for other people to read and write. But I just thought it would be fun to have a sort of workplace romance, even though they don't really work in a place, they're working outdoors. Where they have this horrible history, like super awkward, and it makes it very difficult for Alia to navigate her work schedule day to day, because this guy who she really likes ghosted her for initially no reason. She finds out later what exactly happens. Just to caveat that, like Drew, the love interest, isn't a jerk who just ghosts people for no reason. There's an explanation later, and I just don't want to like spoil it. But yeah, I just think there's something fun about, two people who they work together. Like there's clearly chemistry here. Let's do something about it. And there's no like weird, creepy power dynamic that they have to then sort through or explain, like you said. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean,
like the main thing they need to do, which I'm sure many workplace romances with like the dating a colleague type thing, right? Like our situation, but that's usually never, I mean, it can be a big hurdle from other stories I've read, because I did not meet my husband at work. We met online, but I just like I like that it's very refreshing, because I feel like I'm a fan of majority of romance tropes. I'm like, yay, happily ever afters and all this fun stuff. Like one of my favorite ones that you actually have in your book is there was only one bed.
Yeah.
Oh my God. There's only one tent. There's only one sleeping bed. And when I got to that, I was like, oh my God, like listeners, you can't see me on the Zoom that we're doing this interview, but like I was ready to like throw my pen in excitement of saying that. I was just like, yeah. Clearly you can tell I'm excited, Sarah.
No, I am so happy to hear that, because I mean, that was my, like, I was trying to put a twist on it, because there's not a bed for them to like, do anything when they're camping on location. So it has to be a tent and a sleeping bag, and they have to be quiet, and it's like awkward and weird at first, but then I think it gets pretty hot, like.
Yeah. I agree with that one reviewer, like turn on the ceiling fan, like reading it, I was like, ooh, like scandalous. And my husband's just like, what are you reading? And I was like, don't worry about it. Like, because I mean, he doesn't read romance. He's like a fantasy and like history person. So kudos to him, because sometimes we'll cross books and read together. But he knows, he's like, yeah, He's like, oh, it's your romance? Okay. He's like, have fun with that. Tell me if it's really good. Because he'll just want to be like, oh, did you like it? Basically. But I was just like, yeah, I was like, I know you won't like it, but like, I'm going to recommend it to your mom because she likes reading and likes romance and we bond over that. So I'm going to be like, I'm seeing her, listeners, it's September, what is today? September 15th. So the book comes out on the 21st. I will say, Syosset Public Library, we do have it on order. You can put a request in if you want to call the library. I fact, we just didn't get it in yet, and then it's got to be processed, but we'll have it ready for you. And it is it available? I think I wrote down if it was available on not Hoopla. It's not on Hoopla. I think it might be on Overdrive. I checked and then I forgot, so I apologize. So if you want to know, listeners, contact the library and we will do this for you to get this book in your hand because it's great.
Thank you so much.
So I'm curious, like, what inspired you to write this story? Because I looked into like the summaries of your other books. I haven't read them, but one of them was about they said Figure was a construction site romance. When I briefly looked into that, I was like, that's really cool. But the one that got my attention was Simmer Down, just because I'm like, food.
Yeah.
So what inspired this one, On Location?
Yeah, actually, weirdly enough, the pandemic quarantine kind of inspired me because I think as most of us were, everyone was stuck at home. Anyone who had any travel plans, you probably had to cancel them because it just wasn't going to be realistic to travel anywhere last year. And that was just me, honestly, having cabin fever at home and wishing that I could go to Utah and hike because I love hiking, and Southern Utah is one of my favorite hiking destinations. It's beautiful.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So part of that was my inability to travel. And so I just kind of called on all of my favorite hikes and sightseeing and stuff that I did when I was in Utah a few years ago. And it was just kind of fun to relive visiting a cool place that I couldn't go to, but it was the basis for this really fun story. So that's where the setting inspired that. I also, I don't know if anybody watched the show Unreal it was on like Lifetime, and it was about like that, like Bachelor. It was kind of like based on The Bachelor and The Bachelorette.
Oh, is that, but it's like the behind the scenes of it. And it's got the woman from, oh my God, Roswell.
Yes,
that's what I know her from.
Yeah, same. Yeah. And it was, yeah. So that was also part of it. Like I mean, On Location is not a like dating show, but I took a lot of like the drama elements that happen and kind of like put my own spin on them. Like, well, what could go wrong in the context of shooting a outdoor, nature show with the guy who ghosted you and a host who's absolutely out of control. And
oh my God, he's crazy.
Yeah, he's the worst. Yeah. So I feel like I was trying to do like nature vibes, travel vibes from my experiences, and then like some drama from reality TV based drama series that show. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. I didn't watch that show, but I remember seeing about it and being like, oh, that's interesting. And then I got, Netflix literally probably like owns my soul at this point. But I thought it was really cool because I mean, when reading, like, I've read a romance where they're filming a show, but to me, like, this was a new take on it of like a travel nature thing of like visiting the parks of Utah and like landmarks. Because the other one I read that like pops to mind is Deep Dish by Mary Kay Andrews, just because I've read that somewhat recently, and it was like they're doing a cooking competition show and like they're kind of against each other, fall in love. And I was just like, oh, that's interesting because I feel like it's either like cooking or dating, and it's like nothing else. So it's nice to kind of get this like refreshing thing of like, oh, like that's really cool. And I like that you put the ghosted on, like, because I mean it happens in real life. I've heard stories from friends, so I'm just like to read that and kind of experience it in that sense because I haven't personally done it. That was really interesting to kind of see, and like I could hear stories from friends, but this to me is a little bit more like, okay, it pulls you in, like the story of like what happens, and I like redemption arc, always a fan favorite. But I really enjoyed this because I feel like this book could be marketed to not just romance lovers. Like if you're interested in like travel stuff or, some like interesting kind of behind the scenes drama, you have that. If you like Hollywood stuff, you have that. If you like romance, you have it. Like it could appeal to a lot of things. So I think that's really great. Like it's very marketable.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that, because that was me trying to just trying to throw a bunch of stuff in a book and trying to see just how like out of control I could make things, but also like have it still follow, the basic story arc in a romance, and everybody gets their happily ever after and they have their dark moment and conflict and all that stuff, but also incorporating a lot of different elements. I think I'm just like a really weird person, and I like a lot of really random things. So that's just how
I think it meshes really well together. I really enjoy it, and I'm very excited for like backlist of your titles, because I was like, oh, we have Faker and Simmer Down, like they're on the shelves, I could get them, like yay, something to do. Well, I mean, not this weekend because I'm working, but like when I have like, oh, okay, like because I got to get back in the swing of reading. I joke on some of the other podcasts, I'm like, I don't read anymore. And that's because I have a young child. So I'm just like, I could tell you Goodnight Moon and all those really fun books, like Baby Kiss, my son's favorite. It's just about colors. But I was like, I need to like read adult books, like enough of like the board books. And when I could like sink my teeth into something, and this is like a book. Like thrillers are usually what people think of, like page turner can't put down, but I think On Location also fits that category because you just get so sucked into not just like the main two characters, but everyone else, like the crew, like Rylan and Colton and Haley. Like they're well developed characters. They're not just someone in the background that you're like, oh, who was that person again? Like, were they ever mentioned? Like, no one cares about them, which can happen in books, and that works for some books and some readers and authors. So no hate there, but I'm just like, I felt like I said before, like they're very like real to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is great. So I have to ask, like, would you ever like expand like writing in this universe of their story setting with maybe other characters, or revisiting Aaliyah and Drew? Would you ever write in Drew's perspective?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know. So like I've never written like a series or anything like that by myself. I have a writing partner, and we write a romance series together currently, and we write under the name Sarah Sky. So like I know what that's like, and that's really fun, but like I don't know. I guess if readers, like if there's a character that readers love and want to hear their perspective, I would totally consider it. I just don't know if I could write like another 350 page novel,
Gotcha.
But I think it'd be fun to do like Drew's POV for like a little sneak peek. I think that would be fun. I feel like it's a very, not draining, but it's like always feel very emotionally invested in whatever book I'm working on. And when I'm done and they have their happily ever after, it's hard for me to like go back and like tinker with it, because I don't want to mess up their beautiful world that is perfect. So I don't know, like I would totally be open to it though. I'm open to almost anything. I always wonder if like authors are interested in like exploring further and doing stuff like that, because it's like, oh, like maybe like a reader is just like, oh, this was really cool, like can you like expand upon this? Like I've seen that because another one of my guilty pleasures is I love reading fanfic. And I love when the authors interact and do like, you want to know what? I didn't think of that. Here's like a quick travel of that universe. And I'm like, this is so cool. So then I'm like, with published authors, I'm just like, oh, I wonder if they would do something like if this ever, because some authors are like, nope, I wrote that story, we're not going back. And some people are like, never say never. And some people are like, yeah, no, I'm actually going to make this a series instead of a standalone novel. So it's really cool to kind of get into the mind of the author. Yeah, totally. I'm definitely a never say never person for almost anything, unless you want me to do something absolutely insane, like go swim with sharks or something. Like, obviously, I'm never going to do that. Don't say that. I want to do that one day. Okay, it's not that crazy. No, I was supposed to do that on a trip, and because like the ocean weather was bad, it didn't end up happening. So,
bucket list. It's gonna happen. Just like I gotta throw Utah. So you go hiking it. You've been like, I'm not a hiker. I'm not an outdoor person, so I can't relate. But it's still really cool to like envision it, and then like I had to look up images of Utah and be like, oh, like this is what it actually looks like. Because if it's a real place and I haven't been there, I'm kind of like, oh, like it's like people can't see my confused face of like when I'm reading and I'm like, wonder what that looks like.
Yeah, no, the fun thing about, and yeah, I've been to Utah a bunch of times, and I do really enjoy hiking. I'm not like an expert. I don't go on like multi-day excursions. I just want to like make that very clear. I'm a day hiker. Come back, take a shower, eat food, and sleep in a bed. Like that's as much as I can handle. But the fun thing about Utah is, especially like the national parks and even the state parks there, like they're very accessible for different levels of, you know, so if you just want to go sightseeing, or if you want like to do a 3-day hike where you're not showering and camping, you can do pretty much anything you want. Wow. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll consider. Like I have friends that like hiking, like so Syosset's in Long Island in New York, so like sometimes they'll be like, oh, let's like, you know, like go on a 2-hour drive and we'll like hike this, and I'm just like, you have fun. I die when I'm outside. I was like, you know, I have my job. I'm a librarian. I like reading. I like the indoors. Maybe I'll read outside a little bit if it's nice out. But, you know, it's my realm. Because I have no endurance for that. So kudos to you for being able to be a day hiker and enjoy all that. Because, like, you'd see me, like, just, like, standing there like, okay, I'll just keep going. I'll meet up with you. Like, that's me. That's me.
No, don't feel bad, because that is me depending on the hike too. Like if I've been on strenuous hikes and I'm like, all right, you guys go ahead. I will meet you when I meet you. Thank you so much. Like I do not feel bad. Yeah. Like I just do it because I sit at the computer a lot and I need to be active to counteract all of the horrible sedentary things I'm doing to my body.
I gotcha. I was talking about a friend with that because she's like, she's also a librarian, and she was like, yeah, you know, I went for a walk, and she's like, I got so fatigued, like there's just a basic walk around the block, and just like all the sitting we do. So I understand that that lifestyle. So you talked about like sitting around and writing. Do you handwrite when you're writing, or you type everything?
I pretty much type everything now. Okay. I used to handwrite a lot. I think I handwrote my first book, Faker. I handwrote a couple chapters, I think.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, but I just like, that's such, I mean, that's great. It works for a lot of writers, but like, I feel like it's a lot of time for me. So now I'm just at the point where I type pretty much everything on the computer. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. I feel like it would just like your hand would be like broken down having to like handwrite all of that. And I'm very, you know, I admire authors that can do that. I'm just like, I can't even imagine what that would be like. It's just me writing notes for like a meeting. I'm just like, that was a lot. I'd prefer a computer. Thank you. So do you so with the pandemic, you said that you started working on this pandemic. Did that like, you were inspired like right as the pandemic, like kind of lockdown and all that, or like you kind of knew that you wanted to work on something before the pandemic started?
Yeah, I knew. So I had a contract with my publisher, Berkeley, and so I knew I had to write another book. And I had pitched them a lot of different ideas, and this was just the one that they thought sounded, you know, the most enticing. So which was funny because it was probably the one where I'm like, I'm the least comfortable writing this concept. But that's how it goes sometimes. But I think it ended up working out really well because I did a lot of research. I watched a lot of YouTube, watched a lot of TV, but I also have a couple of friends who work in like outdoor television production. So I got to talk to them and interview them. Yeah. And that was really fun to get their perspective and just see what kind of crazy things happen, you know, when you're on location, like weather not cooperating and like lighting is bad, like all these things you don't think about if you are a person who works indoors or you don't have to like film things for a job. So it was really interesting learning that, that occupation. Yeah.
That's really cool. Are you someone that you need like absolute silence when you write, or like you could be in like a cafe or like blast music?
I'm not a fan of listening to music while I write because I just think that's too distracting for my brain, but I'll definitely I'll listen to like a song or a playlist if I need to get into a certain mindset sometimes. It doesn't have to be like total silence, but like there can be like some, little bits of background noise here and there. But like if there's absolute chaos happening or like it's super loud or if somebody's jackhammering down the street and I'm just like, I can't concentrate. This is so upsetting.
I can understand. I like having playlists for stuff. I used to do it a lot more in college where I'm like, I have my study playlist. I have my like, we're getting, ready to go out playlist. Like, so I like that. And even at work, if I'm at my desk, which is behind the scenes, and I'm not like working with the public, I'll have like YouTube or something. But I recently hijacked my husband's Spotify. So that's a new fun thing for me to play with because I never used it before. But I'll just play music and be like, okay, like I'm doing this. So like when I'm in the zone of working on a project, like, and someone's like, oh, like, what are you listening to? I'm like, it could be anything. I'll listen to classical music, to like Skrillex, to sometimes country, maybe. But I did see on your Instagram, because I stalked you a little bit before this, full disclosure, that you had a playlist on Spotify that you have for your books. Do you have one for On Location?
I do, yes. And one of the things on my to-do list is to share it on Instagram either this weekend or before the book comes out on Tuesday. So, but yeah, I think it's just really fun to throw together some songs that like give me the vibes and the mood of the book.
I saw from the story you did like weeks upon weeks ago that you did for the Faker playlist. I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like, and then I was like, oh, throwback, because I know like half of these songs. So I was like, yes. I was like, oh, this is so cool, because I think it's really fun when like authors like you share that like and are just like, yeah, this is like the mind setting, like, or a recommended listening while you read it type of thing. So it makes it more interactive, and it's another aspect because like as a reader services librarian, we do book clubs or help people create their book clubs. So people are always like, oh, like, what should we read? So when it's something like this, I could be like, you could read On Location by Sarah Smith, and it'd be like, she also had a playlist that, inspires the vibe. Like, what songs did you like? Like, it adds another aspect, another layer to reading and discussing it, which I think is always fun. Because you just want to sit there and be like, it's a good book. Or sit there and be like, I hated it.
Right, exactly. Because then it's just like, oh, that's very anticlimactic, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but this is like, this is why I say like it's marketable, because you could talk about like, the female superior, male subordinate. You could talk about the trying to get into the boys club of breaking in an industry that's predominantly male and very like, don't join us, like, prove yourself, we're going to kind of stack the odds against you type scenario that she does. But I also like, because she's Filipino American, which you are as well. Yes. So I like that that's an aspect, because not everyone is, and I've seen this a lot in the fan fiction world of like, that not everyone's a tall, statuesque, like white, blonde or brunette that, is clearly like everyone's gorgeous, thin, like, a perfect embodiment of whoever. There's so many different people that you could relate to and different stories. So I've been enjoying, I should say, like reading romance with like people of color or different stuff. Like this has opened up like a whole thing of like Asian American characters and authors. And it's just really cool to like read and be like, oh, like this is something new to discover. And it could send you down a rabbit hole of like research stuff. So I love going down those. I'm like, oh, what's this? Like when it says in I don't know if it was the summary when reading it, but her grandmother, what she's referred to, I was like, oh, what is that? Like
her apong, yeah. That's something that like my mom's family is from the Philippines, and that's what we call our grandmas and grandpas. And obviously like it depends on where you're from and what dialect you speak, but yeah, it's fun to be able to put details like that in in something like a rom-com or a romance, because I feel like those are pretty universally read and a lot of people love them. And like you said, it is really special to be able to put my own experience with my culture that I grew up with into a book that I'm writing. Because like, I mean, when I was growing up, I read a lot and I loved romance, and I didn't ever see a character, you know, with my background or even with a similar background. And that was really like that could make you feel like you're not really included, you know, in the media that you're or in the entertainment that you're consuming. So to be able to write books that include that part of me is really exciting. And then I get messages sometimes from readers who they're Filipino too, or they're Filipino American, and they said that it was really special to read a character that comes from their same background. That's really special because there's just something really heartening to know that what you're writing is resonating with readers in a whole new way that they haven't felt before, and that's just a really special feeling.
And I can only imagine. That sounds great, and I'm glad they reach out to you and do that. Like, because I mean, I'm a white woman, and growing up, this is how much of a not outside person I am, and I will tell every romance writer this, and I have even told the author who I'm about to say, because I met her in person once. But to get me to sit outside at my grandmother's place in Florida, my mom would be like, do not go on the computer. You're coming to sit outside by the pool. I'll give you a book to read. And I'm like, fine, because I was the bribe. And like, she'd bribe me. We'd go to like Barnes and Noble before and get stuff. So she's like, you could read and you're sitting outside. You need like sun. You look like you're sickly because I'm very pale. So to get me to sit outside to like really do it, she gave me a Nora Roberts book. And I was just like, I got like sucked in. I don't even know if it was one of her standalones or if it was like one of her series. But I was like, give me more. Like, okay, I'll sit outside for as long as we're like, I don't care. Give it to me. And she's written a variety of characters, but I was just like, oh, like that's kind of cool. Because like she writes a lot of like Irish mythology type stuff. I was just like, I don't have green eyes or red hair, but cool. Like, I mean, but it's nice to kind of see that like more people of color are being like more mainstream than just like a little niche collection, because I think they do, like, the voices deserve to be heard and to be, you could learn so much. Like, I was just like, oh, this is really cool. Like, I like to explore, and then I'll go down rabbit hole, like find like similar authors of like stuff. Or in the case of where I admitted to stalking you, I'm like, oh, what are you reading? Like, this is cool. Like, it's just something like interesting to broaden your horizon and like learn more about people, whether it's a fictional person or like, because you're a real person. So it's just cool to like learn that. So I like pushing that, because I think that needs to be like more in a conversation. So
yeah, definitely. I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Anytime.
Yeah.
But then, see, now I need to be like, Mom, you need a new book to read. You like love stories and romance and a little bit of angst to start. I'm trying to get her, like, she's one of those like bestseller readers. Like, she reads like James Patterson, Sandra Brown. Like, not that there's anything wrong with them, but she's like, I want something like that, and I'll try to like throw her different stuff every now and then. I'm like, what about this one? It's kind of similar. And sometimes it's a hit. Sometimes she's like, why'd you give me? I didn't like this. And it's so funny because I know she really likes romance. So like she has a few that she'll read. Like she always reads Nora. But she's like, oh, I heard this one's good. So I'm going to be like, here's a really good one, Mom. It's got things that you enjoy. A little bit of angst, a love story, happily ever after. The romance shines through, and it's got steamy scenes, because if you ask her what she's read that like incorporates all that, she's going to tell you how great the 50 Shades trilogy is. And go on about how it's really a love story. And I'm like, I can't listen to you do this. Cannot, Mom. I love you. You could read it. You could enjoy it. But there's better things out there. Just saying.
Yeah. And I don't want to hate on anybody for whatever you like reading. That's great. Yeah. You're reading, and that's what's important. Yeah. Good for you. Yeah. But yeah, anytime we can broaden people's horizons, that's a good thing. But yeah. it's not uncommon to run into somebody who's like, oh, 50 Shades. I'm like, okay, that's great. Whatever. If it gets you reading other stuff, awesome.
It could be the gateway. But it cracks me up because I remember she's like, oh, would you go see the movies with me? And I was like, I didn't want to read the stories. So no, I'm not seeing the movies with you. It's not an appropriate mother-daughter movie fest. Go watch it. Either like with my cousins that like read it and spoke with her. And she's like, oh, come on. I was like, literally just like, even ask dad, not a movie I want to see with you. And she's like, he doesn't want to watch it either. And I was like, I wonder why. Like, and she rented it on her own and was happy. She will never fail to be like, hey, a love story. So like I'm E.L. James, I'm glad that if you're listening to this podcast, my mom loves you, and no hate, but there's other stuff I prefer reading.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
No, totally. No, I mean, yeah, not every book is gonna not every book will be somebody, for everybody, and that's okay. That's awesome.
But so I'm glad I have at least like, as we're talking, I have like, another person that pops to mind to put the book in hand to be like, check it out.
Oh, I'm so happy. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I do have to ask, is this book and your previous books, are any of them audiobooks at all? Because I know we have a lot of patrons that like listening to audiobooks.
Yeah. So my first two books, Faker and Simmer Down, they're available on audiobook. I don't think On Location is yet. Like pandemic book production, publishing has been going through kind of like a crazy time, I think, with everything that's happening with the pandemic. And so I don't think it is right now, but when it does, I'll let you know.
Yeah, I'm a big fan just because I'll listen on my commuter when like doing errands, because I don't always have the time to sit and like physically read a book. Although, thank you, NetGalley, for giving me access to yours on that. Because I was like, oh, okay, like here and there, like breaks at work or when I'm home, I could like skim on my phone. So if you like e-reading, options are available. Mm-hmm. But I like to be able to, and I'm always a fan of recommending books that I enjoy reading. I mean, I'll recommend books that I don't enjoy personally just because I know it could, connect to a patron, a reader more. But it's always good when I could be like, no, like I really enjoyed this. And unfortunately, it's going to have to be like, I mean, it's today, this month is September. So like in like 6 months, I could make it a staff pick and being like, I recommend it, because it has to not be a new book to be a staff pick in our library. But we'll put our fun sticker on it. We'll say staff pick. But I'm like, because it's just such a fun book. So like I'm thrilled that we've been able to talk. I've been able to talk to you. So it's just like really cool to know more about you and your writing and just gush about how good your book is.
Oh my gosh. I honestly thank you so much for saying that. I anytime anybody wants to gush over my books, I am here to listen. Always. Thank you so much.
Oh no, anytime. I'm looking forward to any stuff you have in the future, because I know you said you're working on the sequel to the one that you write with as Sarah Sky. So I'm excited to get into that now that I'm like, oh, more stuff. Like, let's do it.
Yeah, no, that's the fun part of being creative for a living. I think you're really only limited by what you want to do. And so, it was really fun to be able to write with my really good friend, Sky McDonald. And those are actually dual perspective. So I know that some people really like, that's their jam, dual perspective. Mm-hmm. And so that was a really fun way to change things up. So yeah, if you want something else to read in the meantime, after you get done with On Location and Faker and Simmer Down, I highly recommend Sips and Strokes by Sarah Scott. Yeah.
That's exciting. Yay. More my forever growing to be read pile. I do promise I will like legit read, not just throw it on a list on Goodreads and like forget about it for 5 years. So.
It's okay. It's honestly, I totally get it, because my TBR pile is just out of control, and I do my best. I try to read as much as I can, given deadlines and what's on my plate at the moment. But it's so hard because there's so many amazing books out there.
There's a lot, and it's funny because I will talk with other authors, and some of my coworkers were always like, "This is where I'm circling back to your book cover as I'm spying it in your background." But a lot of people, don't judge a book by its cover. I like that saying, but I'm also totally for judge a book by its cover. If it's really cool, pick it up. Like, no harm in doing that. That's how I found a few books that I never would have thought necessarily read, just because I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I really like how eye-catching On Location is. Like, your other books are great too. I like the covers. I looked them up, but I like this one because you see that she's got the camera, but you see him in the little lens, and I thought that was just like really cute. Did you even like tell them what you wanted for the cover? Did you have a lot of say in it?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for loving the cover. I love it too. I love that it's like orange and pink, just two super bright colors. I love that so much. So what they normally do is they'll ask like, what input or, what kind of imagery or what I would like to see. But I mean, I'm not an artist. And if I ever had to design anything, it would be the most horrific image in the world. It would be so bad. But I'm just so lucky that like the artist, her name is Vicky Chu. She's done all of my covers for Berkeley. Yeah. And she's so talented. And so what I normally do is I give like, oh, here are some covers that I think are really cute. And then I'll like give pictures of what the characters kind of look like, just to see, and that's pretty much the extent, because again, I'm not an artist. I don't understand the process. I don't want to mess up their, way of doing things, but obviously they need to have some sort of idea of like what things look like. So it's, that's pretty much how it goes. Yeah.
Well, it's a lovely cover. And when we get it, I will make sure you could see it on our shelves. Because sometimes I'm listeners can't see, I'm in one of the basement rooms of the library, so you don't see the fun shelves behind me. You see a very faded thing of like history of the town or the library, one of them. But where the book will be on our second floor reader services floor, we have like regular shelves that like you have this, you see the spine, but we always leave room to leave a book out. So I'll be like, people gotta see it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I'll do a photo. I was like, I'd say I'd tweet, but I don't do Twitter. I'm not good at it, so I can't tweet. I'll like Instagram a photo, be like, it's on the shelf. So
perfect.
If you see anything, but it would probably be from my account rather than the library. So I will just be like, we talked on a podcast. Remember me.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you. I'm super excited. Anything you want to do with my book, 100% supportive.
Oh, fun. Because the library does have a TikTok now. So we like doing fun stuff of like, because we know a lot of people like book talk is like a huge thing. Mm-hmm. So the fact that you have songs that you have for the book, and then to be like, oh, looking for, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if listeners or if like the book of the month, like club or whatever it is. So like I get their emails, and I just like the way they like advertise, like they're like, oh, if you're looking, it's got this and this, and like little like very like cute graphics. So I'm like, oh, you've done on TikTok. So now thank you for the book talk idea with your book and music.
Of course.
Be like, ooh. So if listeners are you, we're at Syosset Library on TikTok. You'll sometimes see me make a brief appearance. But no, I'm very, very happy that you were able to talk and answer some questions with us, Sarah. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
This is awesome.
Oh, no, I want to say thank you once again. We're going to close this chapter of Turn the Page. So I'm Stacey Mencher, Reader Services Librarian. And thank you once again to our very special guest.
Thank you so much, Stacey. Yes. And once again, I am Sarah Smith, the author of On Location. And thank you so much for having me. This is a blast.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.